On your Monday episode of Locked On Raptors, the summer Raptors simply cannot be stopped.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Monday, July the 15th, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 10 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on the website with all of the horrors at Woodley Sean. You can find the show on Instagram at Locked On Raptors, and of course, you can join us over on the Locked On Raptors Discord server. The link is in the description of the podcast. Great place to be. It's been an awesome thing over the weekend as Summer League has started. Lots of Summer League talk going on in there. Lots of talk of the future. Also, come talk about what food you're cooking at home, what video games you're playing. It's all in there. It's a great little listener community we got building around the show. We'd love to see you there. Again, free to join. Link in the description of the podcast. As always, of course, you can find the show for free wherever you get your podcasts. Follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. It's very much appreciated, especially on the audio side of things when you go support us over there. Nice to see us jumping up the charts, etc., etc. You can also find us on YouTube. You can go subscribe to the Locked On Raptors YouTube channel, hit the notification bell, and get a heads up via push notification every single time the show is about to premiere or go live, which is a wonderful thing. Of course, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, let's get to it on today's show. Digging into a 2-0 start for your Toronto Raptors at Vegas Summer League. It's been a long time since a Raptors Summer League roster was this talented, was this exciting, was this intriguing, and there's lots of stuff to get into today. We are going to try to hit on all of it, from the games against the Thunder and the Nuggets, a blowout win on Saturday, then a very narrow victory on Sunday night to move to that 2-0 record. We're going to talk about Grady Dick off the top. I think he's the most important player playing for the Raptors in Summer League. He could potentially be starting a few months from now, so we'll get into his performance early on. Also, some Jamal Shead propaganda, some Jacoby Walter talk, some look at Jonathan Mogbo and Ulrich Chomche as we run through the draft picks for the Raptors in this most recent class. We'll also get to the good, the bad, and the bringing back our annual post-game tradition. Annual? That's not annual. It's daily. Well, I'm a stupid idiot. We're going to get into the good, the bad, and the to round things out, as we always do on the heels of a Toronto Raptors basketball game, summer, regular season, or otherwise. All right, let's get to it. Off the top, Grady Dick. I'm pretty impressed. It sucks that he got hurt in the second game. He missed the second half against the Nuggets on Sunday, and it very well could be the last we see of him in Summer League because, teams tend to play pretty safe with injuries this time of year. You don't want to go and aggravate something and potentially put the start of the season in jeopardy. So if Grady Dick is in fact dealing with a sprained ankle, which it sounds like he is, he took a bit of a knock in that second game, fell strangely. I think it's pretty, we could see him still if things prolong and they, make it to the finals or something like that. Maybe they want to roll him up for that. But I don't think it would be a shock if we do not see Grady Dick play in Summer League again for the Raptors. And I know his performance in the second game left a little to be desired, just 2 of 9 from the field, 0 of 5 from deep after going 0 of 4 in the first game. But overall, I think I kind of saw enough out of Grady Dick to be satisfied with whatever he's going to do this summer in that first game. That's really all I needed to see. That first game against the Thunder, Grady Dick was the best player on the floor, and I don't think it's especially close. He had a command of the half-court offense when he was asked to go and put the ball on the deck and create. He had 6 assists in this game, obviously. That's really, really excellent connective passing stuff that we always knew he had a knack for. We always knew he had the sort of intuition for playmaking and that sort of next play in the sequence, but it was really great to see it actually put into full practice in this game, racking up those assists. And this also applies to the rebounding as well. I think this was kind of the theme of Grady Dick in that first game. It's stuff that he's always had the clear sort of intuition for, the instincts for, the rebounding, the playmaking, all of that. The off-ball movement was always there, but the rebounding and playmaking were things you saw a little flashes of as a rookie, right? Oh, he put the ball on the deck and made a nice cross-court pass with a live dribble. That's exciting. Ooh, he's crashing the offensive glass and getting it in the mix. I think the difference is that he was able to put that stuff into practice more in this game against the Thunder on Saturday. And I think that's very much tied to him just being more physically mature. He very clearly looked stronger. He was a beanpole as a rookie. The stories of, how they saved his season by telling him to work out more, essentially, really, that was like one of the through lines of the season, was watching Grady Dick kind of go from this guy who looked totally out of place on an NBA floor into being someone, as Darko Rajakovic said, went from looking like he was 16 to looking like he was 17 and a half by season's end. Baby steps, baby. And I do think he continues to sort of show that physical maturation process is very much underway. And the rebounding and the playmaking, the operation within the half court, within traffic, all of that points to just the benefits of extra strength. The damn crowd who thinks it's good to work out, score another point for them. They're right. They win, whatever. Grady Dick, 10 rebounds in that game, had the double-double. I think in particular with the rebounding stuff, his instincts for it were always billed as a strength of his, right? Coming in from the corner to crash for the offensive glass, just kind of getting up and into the mix for rebounds just because he's got good leaping ability and good instincts for where the ball is going to land. But it didn't always lead to rebounds in the sort of amount you would have hoped to have seen as a rookie. But here he was physical enough, strong enough to get in among the thickets of bodies and rise above, grab it, pull it down, crashing the offensive glass and actually finding those offensive boards, which he didn't always do last season. All that stuff just points to a more physically mature guy who's settling into the speed of the NBA game, his pockets where he can go and affect things. I was super impressed by Grady on that end of things with, I think, basically everything, right? The rebounding, the playmaking, the defense. I think the team defense from him really strong. Had a couple of possessions where he blew stuff up, got steals, kickstarted the break with outlet passes. I was pretty bloody impressed by all the stuff that was not the 3-point shooting from Grady Dick. And I think ultimately that's what you wanted to see. I would much rather see him have the sort of well-rounded floor game that he had in that opener than to see him come out and only hit a bunch of threes and not do much else. We know the threes are going to be there. This is what shooters are about. I was not deterred from my belief in Grady Dick shooting at all by last year's summer league or the preseason start or the rocky start to the NBA season, although things got a little concerning there by like November, December when things were still not clicking. But overall, that was never going to be a concern of mine with Grady Dick. That dude is a pure 3-point shooter. He has all kinds of juice. He has all kinds of gravity. Teams are worried about him shooting, and that's only going to get more impressive as he plays with better players, as he gets more mature in his body. I have no concerns about the threes. I do not care one bit that he went 0 of 9 in these 2 games to start Summer League. It's all the other stuff that is the really exciting stuff that he can kind of layer into his game beneath that 3-point shooting. And, to sort of solidify the whole he's more than just a shooter thing. That was always true, but it really felt like that was on full display, at least in the opener of Summer League. Again, the second one, not so good, a little bit uncomfortable getting to his spots, missed 5 threes, but still 2 of 4 from 2, 6 of 13 from 2 in that opening game as well. That's the stuff I'm way more excited to see, is a Grady Dick who can score inside the arc. We know the threes will be there in time. And I do think, to the point of playing with better players, the looks he's going to get playing with presumably the other starters in Quickly, Barrett, Barnes, and Pirtle, they're going to be way better looks than the ones he's able to get as the focal point of this Toronto Raptors Summer League team. I think it's only going to get easier for him. That's always been my thought on Grady, is he's the type of guy who's going to play better with better players. It's just the archetype of player he is. And for him to look as good as he did, yes, he didn't hit the threes, but for him to look as well-rounded and polished as he did in a lot of other aspects of the game in Summer League without that sort of strong supporting cast around him, I think only bodes well for what things will look like when he's occupying more of a sort of niche defined role within the Raptors starters, and he's able to affect the game with his off-ball movement, his sort of controlled freneticism away from the ball, his ability to cut and finish on the catch. I was very impressed by Grady Dick. If he doesn't play again in Summer League, I'm good. He has done what I wanted to see. He did that in 1 game of action, and I think he certainly goes into camp, whether we see him again or not, as the favorite in the clubhouse to be that starting 2 guard. I think Bobby Webster maybe kind of let slip by accident. That was their intention anyway, but I think pretty clearly the performance in that opening summer league game for Grady Dick, all but assured that he's going to be at least one of 2 or 3 guys who's in the mix for that starting job. And I would bet today that he does start opening day as the starting 2 guard, and hopefully he can carry over some of the stuff we saw in that first summer league game to that gig. We will come back on the other side, get into the other guys of note, and there were lots of guys of note because this summer league roster is loaded with guys of note. We're going to talk about, in particular, the 4 draft picks the Toronto Raptors have added to the mix and how they performed in their first 2 summer league games. We will do that coming up in just 1 second. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. And look, it's the summertime. The sports calendar is a little bit more muted. However, you do have the Olympics coming up. You do have all kinds of WNBA action. Baseball season continues to roll along. Maybe you want to throw some money down on the home run derby. No worries. Even though the sports are not as in your face as they typically would be during another part of the calendar, FanDuel has got you covered with all kinds of wonderful bonuses and extra daily things to keep you involved and hanging out at FanDuel this summer. FanDuel is hooking up all customers this summer with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. Maybe you want to put a little money down to the Toronto Blue Jays to lose baseball games. That would be a good thing. They're very bad. You could make some money while the Blue Jays stay really, really bad and stinky yet upsetting. That's a wonderful thing for you to go and do. Go check it out over at FanDuel.com. All sorts of other things to throw your money down on as well, especially those Olympics coming up, baby. Very exciting times. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball and of the Locked On Podcast Network. Go check them out. Back at it here, doing a little game recap of 2 games from your Toronto Raptors Summer League opening stretch over the weekend, taking down the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Denver Nuggets to move to 2-0. That beautiful, delicious, sweet Summer League trophy sitting there still within their grasp. It's very exciting times. We're going to get in now to the guys the Raptors took in the draft this year and how they performed in the first couple of games in Summer League. Before we do that, though, just a reminder, Locked On Sports Today is your all-day streaming channel where you can go and check out a whole great many shows all day long, running 24/7 on the YouTube channel. You just put it on, and Locked On shows covering the biggest stories in sports from local and national perspectives is just there for you to be your all-day companion. Go check it out. All right. The rookies, at least the rookies who were drafted. We'll get into Branden Carlson in the final segment when we get to the good. He was very good. But let's get to the guys the Raptors took with draft picks in this year's draft. I want to start with Jamal Shead. Folks, I love me some Jamal Shead. I thought he was really impressive in these 2 games. Not, popping off the screen with crazy stat totals or anything. 7 points, 4 boards, 4 assists in the opener, and then followed up with 9 points, 3 boards, 5 assists in the second game. He shot 2 of 2 from downtown in that second game. That's exciting stuff. 1 of 3 in the first one. One of those threes was a pull-up in that second game as well, which, man, oh man, more of that, please. That would be very, very cool if Jamal Shead could do that. I am not putting too much hope in the 3-point shot just yet. Obviously, the tiniest of insignificant samples. This is Summer League after all. We can't draw massive, huge conclusions from anything we see here in Vegas, but the fact that Jamal Shead is out there willing to take threes when they come to him and doing a whole lot of other really interesting stuff, I am super in on the Jamal Shead experience. I think obviously you start with the defense, very much as advertised, a really, really nasty on the ball defender. Trying to screen Jamal Shead seems extremely challenging. It seems like trying to screen a smoke monster in that you can set the screen all you want, but he's just going to kind of apparate through it and stay with his man. He fights over screens extremely, extremely well. That's a beautiful thing and a refreshing thing to see after the Raptors, one of their biggest weaknesses, I think, last year on defense in general, from the start of the year with Dennis Schroeder to the progression with Emmanuel quickly in the lead guard roll down the stretch, is just they got hung up on screens so frequently. They just had very little fight, couldn't stay on the hip. It was really challenging, and Jamal Shead seems to be very much about putting those issues to bed for this team. I think Davion Mitchell obviously will have a say about that as well. It's nice to have pesky on-ball defenders, baby. I think as a help defender, also super smart. He had 1 possession in that first game where he was not the primary on-ball guy, but he walks over and steps up to the nail, forces a turnover right away. He's just a an absolute hound. It's really awesome to watch a guy who's that bloody good on defense. And I think the thing that gives me hope about Jamal Shead, the defense is an outlier skill, and I think the passing is an outlier skill as well. That dude can make reads on the fly, head up, getting downhill. Some of the passes he was throwing to guys who didn't even seem all that open when he first lined up the pass, but as he throws the pass, the C's kind of part and they just the ball ends up in the shooting pocket of a guy in the corner. That happened a few times with Jamal Shead. I think that's really impressive. I think he has a good first step. I think he can get to the rim, and I think that's going to open up all kinds of playmaking opportunities as well. He had that one really beautiful assist to DJ Carton cutting in on a 45 cut as Shead was, working baseline on a drive, just dumped it right off, head on a swivel. Jamal Shead does the things I like point guards to do, man. I am very in on Jamal Shead. Probably outside of Grady Dick, the guy I was most impressed with from the first couple of games. And, I don't think there's is it crazy to suggest that he could end up being the backup point guard for the team this season? That might be crazy, but he is a 4-year college guy. It's not to say that he has incredible upside. It's not like he's going to go become sort of all-star point guard or whatever, or some sort of all-star point guard, but he's got just like natural, innate game controlling gifts and instincts and intelligence. And I am just so head over heels in on the Jamal Shead experience. I would not be opposed to seeing him at least get a little bit of run with the NBA squad this year. A guy who might take a little bit longer to get there is Jacoby Walter. Looks pretty green out there through 2 games. I think someone in the Lockdown Raptors Discord noted that he kind of just looks like Grady did last year, just sort of getting his sea legs, figuring out the spots where he can affect the game. I'm still pretty in on Jacoby Walter, just sort of the general idea of the player, a catch and shoot 3-point guy, a movement shooter who can also get you some rim pressure. I think he's got to work on the refinement, especially when it comes to the drives and the finishing around the rim. We know he can get to the free throw line. Can he finish through contact? Can he turn those foul opportunities into and ones, that type of thing? A couple of sort of sloppy drives where he puts it on the deck and kind of loses it midway. All that stuff is going to be refined. I like the general idea of what he's doing. And that's kind of what I'm looking for in Summer League, way more than results. I don't really care about the results in Summer League. I'm looking for the process and I'm looking for the flashes. And I think maybe we haven't quite seen the flashes from Jacoby Walter, though he was much better in the second game against Denver than he was against the Thunder. But I do think the process for Jacoby Walter is pretty sound. I think, one of the bugaboos for him in college was kind of rough shot selection. And, maybe a couple examples of that in these couple of games. There was one sort of late deep 3 in the Nuggets game that was really way off and maybe not the most advisable shot. But overall, I think catching on the move, putting it on the deck, taking the threes that are there for him. I was all right with the Jacoby Walter experience on offense. I think defensively, it's still going to take some time, working on that footwork, working on the control. I think he's a very athletic guy. I think there is a good defender in there, but he's also not even 20 years old yet. It's going to take some time for Jacoby Walter. He feels like he's going to get a lot of G League seasoning this year, and I think that's a perfectly fine thing for Jacoby Walter as he just sort of gets his sea legs in the NBA. He'll get some NBA run too, I'm sure, but as we talked about, plenty of competition at the shooting guard spots. So maybe he's a little further down the depth chart, and G League time it's not a bad thing by any means. A guy who doesn't have such a busy depth chart to contend with is Jonathan Mogbo, who suffered a back injury in the late going against the Nuggets on Sunday. Hopefully he's okay. I would love to see more Jonathan Mogbo. We did not see a ton of him in these 2 games, but I am just, man, he does a lot of things I really like. The scoring will have to be sort of the next frontier for him, but the ball skill is clear. He can put the ball on the deck, make something happen. He had this beautiful behind the back dribble and kick to Grady Dick in the corner. I think in the first game, it all kind of blends together at this point. I think it was the first game against the Thunder. And, that's the kind of thing that is really intriguing from a guy like Mogbo, a guy who can, maybe he's not going to, draw a ton of attention as a shooter or anything like that. But if it swings to him, he's got the first step, he's got the handle, he's got the just the physicality to kind of barrel into the paint and take advantage of any runway that teams are giving him and the space they're giving him. He can kind of chew up that space. Frankly, that's a thing I loved from Pascal Siakam, and a reason why I think he was less of a sort of damaging player spacing wise than he got credit for, is because, yeah, you could sag off of him and let him catch the ball and take threes or whatever. But also, he was one of the best in the NBA at chewing up that space you gave him, getting a runway to the basket and scoring as a result of it. I saw a little bit of that in Mogbo in these couple games. Very exciting stuff. I think the defense for him, he plays way bigger than 6'6". He's enormous. I think the rebounding is super innate for him. It's just like he's a very good rebounder. He's got really good hands. He can do the grab and go thing. Obviously, some refinement has to be done here, and the offense is going to be the thing that comes along probably last. He's just a guy who's probably going to get garbage buckets and sort of interior passing, dump offs, things like that early on. But you can see there's some skill there, and he didn't become one of the better interior scorers in all of college for no reason. There's one possession that really stood out. You probably know it. It was his highlight of Summer League probably so far. It was in that Nuggets game in the second half. He gets the ball kind of right around the free throw extended, and he somehow manages to drive into his man, Euro step him in close quarters, and get a ton of separation for a floater he puts up and in. That is what Jonathan Mogbo is going to bring to the NBA level, is that interior scoring, the sort of burst and explosiveness to create separation despite not having a ton of space to operate within. That's the kind of stuff he did in college super well. And I think there's really interesting stuff you can do with a guy who can make things happen in those close quarter situations. I think that is why he excites me so much as a short roll guy, right? You run a screen and roll. He, rolls right into that sort of nail area. He gets the ball. He can make something happen by putting it on the deck, or he can do the spray out and pass thing. He's very clearly got that sort of innately in him as well, is making those passes on the short roll as well. And I also think, there's an element of, could this guy be like a zone buster? One of those types who flashes to the middle, sort of the very best of Precious Achiuwa. We didn't see it a ton, and I don't like to keep on doing the Mogbo Precious comparison. I'm not going to try to do that, incessantly, but this was a thing that I think, had he been able to harness it, could have been a real strength for Precious, which is flash to the middle against a zone, get the ball, and instantly put it on the deck and score, because you have that sort of first step explosiveness in close quarters to go and make something happen, even when the big is kind of draped all over you. I think that's a thing Mogbo is going to be able to do as well. I'm very much in. Obviously, the offensive refinement has to come a long way, but all the soft skills, all of the ball skill, the defensive stuff with him, the rebounding, there's a whole lot of stuff here that could, in theory, drive Jonathan Mogbo to getting minutes as early as this season. I really think, because of the lack of size on this roster, there's going to be a demand for someone who can do the things that Jonathan Mogbo can do, and I would not be surprised. I still think he's going to be the guy who leads the Raptors in minutes among rookies this season. I feel pretty confident about that. And the last guy the Raptors took in the draft, Ulrich Chomche, very, very raw. Obviously, the offense, bit of an adventure in these first couple games. The free throws looking rough, missing heads-up passes from Jamal Shead on the run, things like that. But it's hard not to look at Ulrich Chomche and get tantalized by the mobility at that size, right? I think the defense for him and the rebounding as well, way further ahead of the offense, obviously. And the defense, you can see exactly what the Raptors were thinking when they said, yeah, we're going to take a bet on this guy. A guy who is that sort of mobile and fluid at that size. He runs the floor like the wind. He's enormous. He can block shots. He had a couple of really nasty blocks, kind of recovering from being out of position. That's the thing he's going to have to work on. There were a couple times where he kind of went like Hassan Whiteside, going for those blocks that put him totally out of position and ended up with buckets going in. But I think for the most part, Chomche, just with his length and the disturbance he can provide at the rim, it's really, really encouraging stuff. The fluidity with which he moves, it's hard to find dudes that big who can do that. Backpedaling, I'm in on the defensive upside here for Ulrich Chomche for sure. We'll see if the offense can come along. It's got a long way to come, but I do think playing with a guy like Jamal Shead, who, I would imagine is going to get some 905 time before he, hopefully carves out an NBA role at some point this year. Jamal Shead feels like the type of guy that bigs should be playing with in order to kind of improve their station. We saw this, and I'm not going to keep on doing the Kyle Lowry Jamal Shead thing either, because it's just not fair to Jamal Shead. But point guards who have the finger on the pulse, who know sort of what the guys on the floor around them need at certain times, when to get their guys looks, guys who can help inform how big men play teach him the sort of ins and outs of the pick and roll action, things like that. Like those are the types of players who help bigs get paid, who help bigs find themselves NBA jobs. And it's not to say that Ulrich Chomche is any kind of guarantee, because he's not. The offense is super far away from being even close to NBA ready, but playing with a head on his swivel, really intelligent lead guard type, I think gives him as good a chance as possible. And even just sort of taking all that in through osmosis, like in practice and stuff like that, it's going to be really valuable. And we saw in the one instance where Ulrich Chomche missed that very beautiful pass from Jamal Shead on the run. Jamal Shead, takes him aside. Hey, look for me. I'm going to be looking for you if you're running the floor. Be ready. Look for me to hit you. And, that's the type of stuff that hopefully is the beginning of a very beautiful guard big friendship. Overall, hard to be disappointed with what we've seen from the rookies out of the gate. I think Walter may be the least impressive of the bunch compared to previous expectations, but even then, I think it was always going to be a bit of a slower burn for Jacoby Walter. Shead and Mogbo, I think, look relatively ready or close to ready to at least pretend that they can be contributors at the NBA level, to give them a shot at least and see what they can do with it, because they do a lot of interesting things. And I wouldn't be shocked if those two guys are number 1, 2 in minutes played for Raptors rookies this season. Frankly, it's Walter's the higher upside guy. He's the younger guy. It's going to be the longer play, but Mogbo and Shead do things right now that can impact, maybe not winning, but effective basketball on the floor. And I think that's a good thing to have in a couple of rookies who you took because they were sort of higher floor, further along in their development type of guys. We'll come back in on the other side, round it out with a look at the good, the bad, and the from the first couple of Summer League games as we bring back our favorite end of show segment on the heels of a Toronto Raptors basketball game. We'll get to that coming up in just one sec. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, wrapping things up here with the good, the bad, and the We bringing it back, baby. For those uninitiated, this is our end of show segment after every Toronto Raptors basketball game, where I talked about a thing I like, a thing I didn't like, and a thing that's got me a wee bit intrigued from said basketball game. And so let's dive in. We're talking 2 games here, so we'll kind of put them all together, a bit of an amalgamation of goods, bads, and hmms. But the good for me, the two-way guys. We talked about Chomche. Obviously, he's a two-way as well, but I'm more talking here about Branden Carlson and DJ Carton. 2 of the more impressive players for the Raptors so far through 2 games, I think. Carlson just looking extremely competent, which, look, he's a 25-year-old rookie who played 5 years in college. You would hope that he looks pretty competent and like one of the better players on the floor. And he did. He totally did that. I don't totally know what to make about the fact that he's 25. He's not a high upside player by any means. He's probably pretty close to what he's going to be. But what he is right now is a 7-footer who moves pretty well, runs the floor super well, good rebounder, solid defender, good rim protection stuff, 6 blocks in that second game against Denver. That's nothing to sneeze at. Did a pretty good job walling off post-ups and things like that. I think the sort of big question for him defensively for me after watching him play a little bit here is, can he manage backpedaling in space? I think there were a couple times where he kind of got blown by when he had to work and stay in front of a guard who was trying to get downhill. But that said, he also had a huge defensive possession late in that game against the Nuggets with Julian Strawther, who was going off in this one. Who we totally kept to the perimeter, forced into a really tough shot and a miss. That was great to see from Branden Carlson. Again, he's 25. He's a 5-year college player. You can't have crazy high expectations for what he's going to be, but He shot the three extremely well in college. He was, 38%. He shot the three well to start summer league as well. And if he can be a spacey 7-footer, there's like a Luke Cornett style role for him somewhere in the NBA. One would think maybe he's not going to be an incredible defender against sort of NBA ready bodies, but third big who gives you a little bit of space and stretch and some breadth into your offense. Like, maybe there's something there. Again, he's a two-way. I try not to get too carried away with these guys because we do this all the time, right? Oh man, Jeff Doughton Jr., he's the best. No, he's a two-way for a reason. He's 26 years old. There's a reason he has not latched onto a team yet. Freddie Gillespie, oh my God, this guy is the godsend for the big man rotation that the Raptors have badly needed. No, he's Freddie Gillespie, right? Like we get so enamored with these fringy NBA guys, all of whom are talented. Like there's nothing against these guys. They're all where they are for a reason, but are they talented enough to be mainstay NBA players? That's a really hard thing to do, and not everybody can go and do that. That said, pretty impressed with Carlson, and I'm happy to see a little bit more here in Summer League and eager to see what he can do on a two-way. I would imagine he's probably, in line at least for some fringe rotation minutes when he's with the big club, just because of the lack of options they have at center. And maybe he can be a nice bench big for you. You're not asking to have a ton of upside. You're asking him to have a pretty high floor, which he looks like he just might have. DJ Carton, I thought looked pretty interesting in these two games. Didn't shoot well in the second game, just 3 of 10. But I think the combination of defense from him, the athleticism, the sort of playmaking instincts, all there for DJ Carton. I really like what he does as a driver. I think he's got a really good sort of package of, slow down, speed up, hezzy, really turn on the jets. He's got that change of speed thing that is so valuable for guards trying to get downhill, working from, just being smaller, trying to put defenders off balance, find those little pockets inside the paint. I think DJ Carton has a pretty good knack for that stuff, at least against summer league competition. That's for sure. And I thought he was just like pretty impressive as an offensive player and a guy who could get his own and also create for others over the course of these two games. Also really impressed with his defense, just like really strong on the ball. Really, again, the athleticism kind of plays there as well. He's pretty big for a guard. He's like 6'3", can stay in front of his guy. On a two-way, happy to see that he's back. We'll see if he can work his way into the rotation. The Raptors need a backup point guard, I guess. Maybe him and Jamal Shead and Davion Mitchell all battle it out in camp and someone rises and has that job. Maybe it's a bit of a backup point guard by committee situation, but they have at least a few flyers to throw at the wall, see if anything sticks, and you could do a lot worse than that. But yeah, pretty impressed by DJ Carton in this one as well. And his change of pace as a driver, pretty fun stuff that pops when you watch him play. The bad, sucks to say, but Ochai Agbaji, man, this was not what you want to see from a third-year NBA player who should be the best player on the floor, probably, if all things are equal. Maybe Grady Dick, you expect to be better than him, but I thought Ochai was going to come out and look the part of a guy who's played 2 full NBA seasons, and he just didn't, man. Like, yeah, there's these flashes once in a while of, ooh, that was a nice drive and finish. Ooh, that was a nice finish through contact, but for the most part, it's pretty rough decision-making. It's more turnovers than assists. It's a challenge with the sort of connective stuff that he's going to be asked to do if he's going to hold on to an NBA job. He just really wasn't able to do that in these first 2 games. Maybe there's still more to see from him. Maybe Grady Dick being out gives him more leeway to be sort of the lead guy. But a lot of these games, Ochai was just kind of invisible. He's not really there. And on defense, I mean, again, I continue to maintain his defense is more theoretical than it is anything he's actually shown. It's a shame because I do think the tools are there, but getting beat off the bounce, not offering a ton of resistance is the same stuff we saw down the stretch of last season where his defense underwhelmed. And in the summer league, you should really be hoping Ochai is locking guys down at the point of attack and offering a little bit more juice offensively. But to go 3 of 7 in both of these games and be kind of a non-factor in the offense, not doing a ton to, progress possessions, make the next play. It's tough, man. I want to see Ochai make it because he's a 6'5" theoretical two-way type guy if everything hits, but it's not looking great right now, man. And I do think the first stretch of this coming season, if he gets some run, if he gets a chance, it very well could be the make or break time for his career in the NBA. I don't like to say this. I root for every guy to succeed, and I want Ochai to succeed. I would love to be wrong about Ochai Agbaji. There's no doubt about it, but I don't think I am right now. It's just not there. It's not clicking. It's not popping off the screen in a way it should for, again, a guy who's in his third year, who is a 4-year college player. He should just be more advanced than a lot of these guys that he's up against in summer league, and he just has not looked the part through the first couple of games. Hopefully there's more, and there's a bit of a stronger finish to summer league to be had here, but by the time you're in year 3, you should be clearly too good for summer league. You should have that branded across you, and it just does not seem like Ochai has that right now. Let's get to the real quickly. Lots of stuff we can get into. I thought Jamison Battle was a pretty interesting player. There's no roster space, no 2 ways left. So maybe like an Exhibit 10 contract or something like that, an invite to camp. Maybe that's there for him. He looked pretty good. He's big. He's got some functional size and whatnot. But again, we'll see. He's an older prospect as well. But I'll go with Javon Freeman-Liberty. I thought he was really good. He didn't shoot super well in the first game, but I do think his rim pressure, he almost had like an absolutely monster hammer of a dunk in that first game. The rim pressure he's able to sort of create is pretty interesting. They kind of relied on him late in that Nuggets game when it was close to sort of be their avenue to rim pressure and easy buckets. He got to the free throw line a couple times. He had that lefty finish late in the game as well. I think tied up at 81s. He's a guy who, we've never quite seen it all click at the NBA level, and he could just be one of these guys who's that sort of tweener between the G League and the NBA, where he's very clearly super talented, has a lot of skill, but maybe it's just better suited at the G League level than the NBA level because the role player stuff doesn't come as easily. And I think the best moments we saw of Javon Freeman-Liberty were with him on the ball. This is not something we're going to see a ton from him in the NBA, but there's still talent there. Can they channel it into a more role player friendly style of play? I'm less sure of that, but he's going to be one of the more interesting guys going into camp. Obviously, they have 15 roster spots sewed up right now. We'll see what happens with Sasha Vezenkov and whether or not the Raptors will buy out his deal. If he goes back to Europe, that's still a whole weird thing we have yet to have any sort of clarity on. But then you have Javon Freeman-Liberty, who I think would be the next in line for a roster spot just because he's been around longer, even though there's a glut at his position. The Raptors love 2 guards. They would love to have him back, surely. But right now, he's on the outside looking in. If you're looking at the 15 roster spots, maybe he can carve himself out a role and really make something happen here. And I do think he's off to a good start with his summer league play. We'll see. He might just be a guy who comes to camp, gets cut, and we never hear from again. But I think there's enough talent there, enough potential shooting upside, things like that, connective playmaking, where maybe they can funnel him into a role player type of niche, and there's something there. But we will see with Javon Freeman-Liberty. That's why he's the I don't really know what to make of him right now. We'll leave it there. Thank you so much for hanging out and tuning into the show and listening to me I think, do just kind of diarrhea of the brain on Summer League. It's a lot of stuff happened, right? It's also hard to have really strong takes on Summer League, but tried my darndest for you. And I think we can leave it there. Just a heads up on the rest of the week's schedule. I'm on vacation, and so there will be no podcast, I think, Thursday or Friday. There might be one Friday, maybe Saturday, kind of getting a Summer League thing in there because they have 2 more games later this week. But as of right now, the only things that are set in stone are today's episode. Tomorrow, we're going to have Parker Ainsworth from Locked On Cougs to talk about Jamal Shead in more depth. Very excited about that. Looking forward to sharing that conversation we had last week with you. And then Katie Heinel and I recorded a mailbag podcast last week that'll drop on Wednesday, and then the rest of the week will be a bit TBD. Hang out and check out the Discord for updates on whether or not more shows are coming out. But one way or another, we'll get some Summer League talk for you, Saturday, or at the very worst, we'll do a full kind of recap of things, hopefully going into the Summer League playoffs and finals for your Raptors early next week. But thank you so much for hanging out. Thanks for rocking with the show. Thanks for subscribing, following, rating, reviewing, et cetera, et cetera. Always appreciated when you do that. And we'll be back again on Tuesday with the Jamal Shead-centric episode of Locked On Raptors. Thanks so much for hanging. Bye-bye.